Hi folks, today's lesson's a bit of a recap on graphs and coordinates. If you remember, we did coordinates just before Christmas. So here's an example of the kind of thing we did. We have a grid, and just remember the important parts of the grid. That this one is the x-axis, and that this one is the y-axis. And they're really important because when we do coordinates, we always write the x and then the y. And we watched a little video, and I'll just go through this one. Pause the video and try and write down the coordinates for A and for B if you want. But I'll go through this one now anyway. So looking at A, we always do the x first. So for the x, it's 1. And for the y, it's 4. Okay, now looking at B, what do you think it might be? For the number on the x-axis, it's 3. And for the number on the y-axis, it's 2. Now, you don't have to draw those lines that I did. I'm just using them to show you that the x comes first, and we look at the number on the x-axis first, and then the number on the y-axis. So that's how we do it. What I'd like you to do now is pause the video and have a go at this question. Just be careful on this one because there are negative numbers as well. Make sure you've written your answers down. I'm going to show you the answers now. So the coordinates of A are 3, 2, and the coordinates of B are -2, -1. Mark those in your book if you got them right. Now that's the first thing that you need to be able to do with coordinates. You need to be able to get the coordinates right. And the main thing to remember is you write them in a bracket, and you must write the number on the x-axis first and the number on the y-axis second. What I'd like you to have a go at doing now is I want you to pause this video, and I want you to go on to Hegarty Maths, and I want you to do clip 199. I've set that for you. You don't need to watch the video because I've just explained it. Go and have a go at Hegarty clip 199. You do then need to come back to this video because there's a little bit more work to do. The next thing we're going to look at is something we've done before again, but I just want to check you remember it, and it's equations of lines. Okay, so what we're going to look at is the equations of these lines. What I want you to do first is I want you to pause the video, and on A, I want you to write down 3 coordinates that are on A. So pause the video now and write down 3 coordinates that are on that red line. So there's a number of different coordinates you could have. I'm going to choose this point. That coordinate is 2, 2. I'm going to choose this point. That coordinate is 2, -2. And I'm going to choose this point. That coordinate is 2, 4. It doesn't matter which coordinates on that line. You could have chosen any of these coordinates. You should notice a pattern. What's that pattern that you notice? You should notice that all of this first number are 2. And what did I say before about the numbers in a coordinate? The first one is always the x and the second one is always the y. So the equation of this line would be x equals 2. Because the x is always 2. That's the rule. Any coordinate can be on this line. It carries on off the graph. We just haven't drawn it. Any coordinate can be on this line, but the rule is that the x coordinate must be 2. That's what this equation of a line is. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing on B. So pause the video and write down 3 coordinates that are on that red line on B. Okay, so some of the coordinates you could have. You might have -3, -3. You might have -3, 1. You might have -3, 0. So have a think and write down what do you think the rule is. Well, it's the first number that stays the same. That first number is always -3. The first number's the x, so the rule is x is -3. Mark that if you got it right. Okay, looking at the next one. Bit trickier. What do you think that any of these coordinates, just write down 3 of them and see if you can spot a pattern. Okay, so you could have, it's actually -2.5. I'm looking at this point here, 3. This point here is negative 2.5, 1. This point here, negative 2.5, negative 4. So what's the rule? Write it down. X equals negative 2.5, because that's the rule. Now, we do usually deal with coordinates on points like this, but you are allowed them to be halfway along a square. Just be really careful with that. Okay, so here's 3 more questions. It's the same idea as the questions we just did, so you can have a go on your own if you want. I'll go through the first one with you. 3 coordinates on this line. What's the pattern? What can you see happening in those coordinates? This time the second number is negative 1. What do we call the second number? It's always the number on the y-axis, it's always the y. So the equation of this line is that y equals 1, because the rule is that the y coordinate is always 1. Have a go at the next 2. Remember, write down 3 coordinates, then decide what you think the equation of the line is. Pause the video now, have a go. Okay, you should have written your answers in your book, mark your work. This one is y equals negative 2. And this one, bit trickier, is y equals negative 3.5. Well done. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I just want to double check your learning. I've set you a small IDOCO quiz. It's just got 5 questions in it. Some of them are multiple choice, some of them you have to type it in, but I'll check them all. So it's just 5 quick questions. So the first thing you have to do, remember, is you have to go to connect.idocio.net. And then where it says room pin, you type in the number 41777. Make sure you've clicked put a tick in the little box underneath. Make sure you put your name in. You don't need to put your full name because no one's got the same name in the class, just your first name's fine. And then do those 5 questions. Once you've done them, just have a little look in your book. Is it nice and neat? Have you written a title? Have you written the date? Because that's what you should be doing. Later in the week, I'll ask you to submit a piece of work so I can see what your book is looking like, but I'm expecting it to be as neat as it is in lessons. I hope you're all doing well. If you've got any problems or want any help at all, my email is kmilnes@stwilfrids.com, so you can email me if you're struggling with any of it. Well done, folks. Have a great day.